Welcome, Reanimated fans, to this week's episode. Hailing from Brooklyn, am H.A. Conrad, here with my intrepid co-host, as always, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Good day, H.A. This episode brought to you by Glenmorangie.
Nice. I have no Morangi to hail.
No Glens?
Or
Nary a Glen?
No Glens, no Fiddix, nothing.
Huh.
But in any case, cheers.
Cheers.
But, you know, winding down a nice weekend, so what better thing to do than to talk about zombie films? But before we head into our review, which will be The Cured, our long-awaited Ellen Page zombie film, directed and written by David Frayne. We have actually quite a few news items, some of which I'm really excited to talk with you about.
Yeah, there's some crazy news that broke in the last couple of days, and I will try my darndest to get this online to make sure that we don't squander these scoops.
First up, you snagged an article, and I had missed this, but the very troubled Patient Zero, which stars Matt Smith, there's a little bit of news there. And we've talked a few times about this because they keep talking about it. There was a lot of talk about how they were rewriting things, re-editing things, and now we have an official release date, though not to theaters.
Well, that's no surprise, I think, right? Because it basically, it's the last time we talked about this. It's because its release date got taken away, deleted off of the internet. So we were worried that we were never going to get to see it. So I am excited that it's going to come to VOD as early as August 14th. And then Blu-ray and whatnot in the fall. I've given up trying to understand how the movie business works. I don't know why they think that this is like cheaper or potentially more lucrative, but I'll support it. So we're gonna watch the heck out of this when it comes out because it's got Matt Smith, Natalie Dormer, and Stanley Tucci, triumvirate of excellent actors. But this is a strange day of movie projects with great casts. So.
True. We've also got a couple of announcements, one of which, well, actually both of which I was like, is this real? First off is Zombieland 2 is official and with all original cast members signing on. And Ruben Fleischer, and so other than Bob Murray, who, as you may remember, was killed off in Zombieland 1.
You just call him Bob Murray?
Bob Marley? Bill Murray. I'm thinking of Bob Marley, you know.
There you go. I get those two guys confused a lot. One of them's been dead since 1984.
Bob Murray. Bill Murray. Ooh, it's been a long weekend, and I am not even drinking a Glen.
Maybe the Glen is what you need right now.
Maybe I do. But in any case... amazing cast, given everybody's schedule. Everybody signed up. Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone,
Jesse Eisenstein, Berg.
Yep, Abigail, Bob Eisenstein, and Abigail Breslin have all signed up for the sequel. So that sounds pretty exciting, and it sounds like are they talking about a 2019 release date or just a filming date? Either way, that would seem pretty early to me, but who knows?
What we hear is that it's in production, but I don't think that there's anything else out there.
And speaking of Bill Murray, Bob, to those who know him really well, there is a zombie production with also an incredible cast that is lined up. This one I did think was a total gag based upon the cast, but it's Steve Buscemi, Chloe Sevigny, Bill Murray. Who else is it?
Tilda Swinton, Adam Driver.
Tilda Swinton.
Selena Gomez, of all weird people to be in a zombie movie, but okay.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome, though. That makes me excited.
Why is she awesome? Isn't she a singer?
Selena Gomez? She was in you probably did not watch this, but she was in that the cute little whatever it is, that little show that was on. She's not just a singer, she's also an actress. But originally she started out in Wizards of Waverly Place.
Okay.
You have nieces. I would imagine you would have known this. No?
Sorry,
no?
we don't get down. Oh, well, she has a lot of titles on Filmography.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, she's very popular.
She's done
she
a lot
also
of stuff.
dated. She was also her and the
Oh.
Beebster were somehow connected
see,
for a
that
while.
that is where I tune out. I don't care who's dating who.
Well, there you go. In any case, she's very popular, and it's pretty amazing that she signed on to this.
So Wikipedia does have a 2019 film date year for The Dead Don't Die, which is the Bill Murray project.
Oh, okay, maybe I was confusing the two. So yeah, all these are very exciting, and so I'm thrilled that this is happening, and these projects sound great. So stay tuned for these. In news that we knew this was going to happen. We teased it a little bit last time, but Talking Dead is going to be hosted by Yvette Nicole Brown, and in place of Chris Hardwick. And we had talked about the likelihood of this happening, which was very likely. And I'm glad to see she's taking the reins, and it'll be interesting to see what she does with this. But I think I don't know. Did you watch Community at all?
Yeah, all of them.
So I never really got into that, but every time I've seen her on the brief times when I have watched The Talking Dead, as you know, I'm not into it, I've liked her. So
she has great energy. She's super positive. She's
into it.
She's going to be similar to Hardwick in her fanboy girlism. However, she brings her own kind of snarky. She has some good sass to her comedy too, so that'll be fun. Her voice it will be a fresh thing. The article also mentions a little bit about Hardwick's ongoing hardships, in that they're still waiting on the results of this investigation. So she is an interim host, so there's still a chance that Hardwick could be returned to the throne. And it also mentions his wife, Lydia Hearst, and how she's been, she stood by him, and she's, tweeting links to change.org petitions to get him reinstated, etc. But one of this is maybe, neither here nor there, but one of the telling things about her Twitter feed recently is that it's just like a jigsaw puzzle a day. She posts a photo of a jigsaw puzzle undone, and then it's finished like a day or two later. So I have a feeling that they are just, she's a working model and busy lady, but I'm sure he went from probably one of the busiest people in LA to a guy with nothing but time on his hands.
Right. And again, we've talked about this before. I don't know how you really do an investigation of this. You
need corroborating witnesses, I assume. They've got to like Chloe Dykstra has to find some other people who are going to come out and say, yeah, he was like that with me too, and that will justify this, I guess. Either way.
So far, though, his exes have come out in defense of him.
Yeah.
So at least the ones that have been speaking up, though that wouldn't be unusual if people were not speaking up to, like,
yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to have an investigation of this nature when there's no legal action. So it's not like he's a company, because he is, I guess, kind of a franchise. But anyway, I'm curious to see what happens and what they do. But I just no matter what, like, even if he is cleared, I don't know how you recover from this.
Yeah.
In Hollywood. So
speaking of being unable to recover from things, there's an
nice
article
segue.
an article that I was pointed to in Wired magazine today about a new deadly superbug that is yeast, which is different, I guess, because yeast usually can be defeated with the use of some, I don't know, anti-yeast stuff. Antifungals, thank you. And it usually grows in wet, dark places, and this yeast, which is called Candida auris, can grow in cold and dry places too, and it is resistant to a lot of things, and it is in 27 countries. There's like 300 cases in the United States already, and the only good news, if there's good news, and it's not really good, is mostly that the people who are contracting it and dying from it in some cases already have a compromised immune system. That's actually not good news. It just means that, hey, if you've got a really bad sickness that you might be able to get over, now there's a chance that this yeast, which is extremely difficult to get rid of, can just sneak in and get you. And it is almost impossible to kill in hospital environments even. There was in this article, they detailed a hospital in London that had like hydrogen peroxide bombed the rooms where their patients who had this had been stayed and then were discharged from, and people still got this thing. They talked about people who had been tested 3 times and got cleared with negative test results, and then on the 4th test result, it came back positive after weeks and weeks. It's a very difficult organism.
Yeast to kill.
Yeast to kill, and it is making people sick.
Great. That makes me all excited for MERS. Not. I think that on that note, we should jump into other infections that can't be cured, or can they?
Oh-ho!
And and I'm speaking of the film The Cured, which we have been talking about, I feel like for years now, though I know it's probably not been that long.
I think it's been years.
Yeah. But anyway, this came out in 2017. And it stars Ellen Page, Sam Keeley, let's see, Tom Von Lawler.
Is he Connor?
Yes. And then there's a couple of extra people. Paula Malcolmson is Dr. Lyons.
Deadwood fame. She's probably the only recognizable person other than Ellen Page, honestly. For me.
Right.
For myself.
And there's, also Stuart Graham, who I did recognize, who is the main sort of check-in military person.
Sergeant Cantor?
Yep.
AKA the guy who never shows up with enough backup for things.
Ever. Yep.
But I get ahead of myself.
Yes.
I did not recognize that dude, but he was good. I mean, I like the cast. It was small, but it was a small cast, but it felt big because of the way that this film handled ambient activity, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or either that or they just had a really big cast of extras who were actually pretty good at being extras.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That is probably likely. Because there were definitely points, and we'll talk about this, where I was feeling, but they had an explanation for it, why it was a little bit sparse. But this takes place in Ireland, and the premise is that the people there have been infected, and they have found a cure, a vaccine, so to speak. But there is 25% of the infected that are not able to be cured, and this is the reintegration process into society, which is not going too well. And so you've got people that have never been infected, that don't want them living among them. It sounds like there's been incidents with them, so they are cured, but not. They're not totally back to normal. There's still behavior that they're exhibiting that is not like you would be really super psyched to see on your street.
So let's look at our
panting. There's lots of stuff.
Oh, the panting is weird, but yeah, that they tend to do that behind closed doors. There is some. So let's look at the parallels between this and In the Flesh, which is the most the closest thing we can think of to it, and it's weird that it also comes from the British Isles in a way. Mm-hmm. What did you think of the overlap there?
In terms of...
Well, I mean, it's a similar plot, at least similar concept. So do you feel like it distinguished itself enough from In the Flesh to be its own animal?
I think they did. Their sort of idea of what the infected would do was a little bit more gory than In the Flesh. I mean, In the Flesh showed flashbacks, but they weren't... And they showed some gnarly ones, but it wasn't quite as brutal as what we were seeing in this. The other thing that this did was to really bring it home. So the main sort of cured person that we're following around is Senan, and he's having a lot of flashbacks. Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen it, stop and go and watch it. But they reveal this pretty early on, or you can surmise pretty early on, that he actually killed his brother. And he's going, as a cured person, is going back to live with his sister-in-law and his nephew. Ellen Page is a sister-in-law. And they remember everything, and that's very similar to
That's it.
in the Flash.
Yeah, that's well. I feel like he had flashbacks, but didn't necessarily remember it all. But um,
It
this
isn't
is
quite as vivid.
yeah, this is
This
like
is
you remember everything crystal clear, which is a horrible concept, right? That's
Right.
this whole like locked out syndrome type approach, where
Yep.
you're just you have to watch yourself eat your brother in some cases. I mean, good grief, right?
Right, and how Senan describes it, or what's another cured person describes it, is that you're kind of watching yourself doing this and trying very hard not to, and you just can't. And so that's traumatizing. It's like the flashbacks that they're having, very much PTSD, and so I would imagine it's not going to be very cozy getting back into society.
Yeah. And some of
they've also-
Senen's flashbacks or visions aren't necessarily memories, but like fears of what he might do, because he also has
Right.
some nightmares about Killian, which
Yep.
you assume didn't go the way that happened in his dream,
Right.
like where he's a zombie and he confronts Killian, because I don't think that could have possibly happened, or
No, it
Abigail
didn't.
never would
So-
have invited him back into the house,
No.
So-
So. Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
So
Wild night over here. No. So.
Ellen Page
I
is an
think that-
American, which I thought was a good touch too. Like I think I don't remember if we had talked about whether or not she was going to try and fake an accent or what she was going to do with her nationality. But she plays an American. Her son also has kind of a halvesies accent, which I liked.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't find a kid with a straight up American, straight up Irish, whatever. And they also deal with the fact that why she is still there.
Right.
And this plays into the whole overarching kind of themes. We've talked about how David Frayne has done interviews where he described his motivation as being the populist politics of Europe and the United States, especially with Trump and Brexit and UKIP and these dudes. And you feel that in this plot.
Right. You definitely feel it. And just the reactions that the people are having and when people are afraid, you see the things that they do, and it can be kind of ugly. And you can draw parallels with so many things that are happening right now. And so I thought that was successfully done. I did feel like the cast was excellent, though I did feel like the pacing of this film needed some help in parts. And there definitely felt like to me, it felt like some of the storytelling was a little bit disjointed, especially as it related to Connor. So I don't know how you felt about it, Stuart, but to me, it felt like there was a lot of Connor looking weird and sort of threatening, and then he dropped these things where, I don't know, it just felt a little bit forced to me.
Connor was evil from the get-go. There was very little gray area with Connor.
Right, like there's nothing there.
And
so
honestly, I didn't know his name until about halfway through the movie, and it just was calling him Stalker Guy. He just
because he just is weird.
Yeah.
I mean, he's weird and hanging out, and I don't know.
I mean, but they do. There is still a character arc for him. He doesn't, because he goes first. His first act is to go to his father, but then you find out that he probably ate his mom. So that was a bad idea, Connor. I'm not sure why you thought that was going to work out for you, but then he ramps up his behavior from just like standing around stalking and being generally creepy to being
Uber creepy.
Super, yeah, like the paradigm of creep and this like alpha concept, which I kind of enjoyed. I thought that was a really neat dynamic.
See, I thought that was a great dynamic. I wish they had explained a little bit more of it, or like I think you were supposed to draw your conclusion by the way that they were acting.
Yeah.
But this alpha concept is that Connor was the infected that infected Senan, and therefore had some kind of power over him, power to tell him they hunted together, so power to tell him who to kill. So
that one
ostensibly,
scene where he's doing the dynamite through the window and he just breathes on his back, and then you get the flashback where he breathes on him when he goes to kill his brother. I was like, I thought that was remarkably well done with no dialogue.
Yep. And so I thought, I mean, Connor did a good job of playing a creep, and this dynamic between them was interesting, and I did think that was like a unique thing to add in. But I guess my question is, where does it go from there? I don't think they totally explain how now that they're doing these weird things, like how is society going to accept them? And
what do you mean by doing these weird things?
Well, so if they're still have like so some of them can are cured but are not having the dreams, which means they don't really have any guilt about what they did.
Oh.
So you kind of have to assume that most of those are the alphas, maybe.
Well, I don't know that that's actually like a scientific thing. That was just something that Cantor said, like, "Oh, you having nightmares? Good. It reminds you of what you know." It's just I feel like that's the PTSD element.
No, because when Senan says it to Connor, he says, "You don't dream, do you?"
You don't have the nightmare. Yeah, but I mean, still, I just feel like that's some hazy backyard psychology. Not so much.
Well, but that's one of the concepts that I wish they had fleshed out a little
Okay,
bit.
yeah.
Haha. But anyway, but in terms of the storytelling, there's definitely a couple of places where this just runs rocky, but not too many. And overall, I very much enjoyed the film.
Yeah, I was
up
along for the
until
ride.
the end.
The end is open. Let's say it's not like an open.
It's a
It's
little
not like
too
a
open.
closed. They don't tie off all the loops. They definitely leave a lot of things out there. For instance, Connor. No idea what happens to him. Although there's like
Remarkably resilient, Connor.
yeah, there's a political ad on the street when she's walking down the street at the very end of the movie that it looks a lot like Connor on this ad. Like he's running for office again, maybe. Which I'm like, there's no way. There's no way that he could reintegrate into society, even as a cured rights advocate. But I know
Yeah,
I'm jumping to the very end. But yeah, so the end is a little bit loosey goosey, but I really enjoyed the ride and the relationship ups and downs between Abigail and Senan. She kind of she's a journalist, so she's pretty engaged, you know, in like the story and in what's happening. There's scenes of her trying to persuade her bureau in the United States to cover the fact that the UN is pulling out, and she's like, they're not ready. It's too early. We've still got, you know, all these resistant to take care of, and the third wave has just been released, and we don't know what's going to happen. I felt like I honestly, it kind of had me on the edge of my seat the way that the story was unfolding.
Right, but interestingly enough, she's fine with the cured, but she thinks that they should exterminate the
The
25%
resistant.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
She totally thinks that.
I
and,
can see that. I get behind that. Except that
yeah,
there's the one character. What's her name? The blonde lady.
Joan.
She's obviously
Lyons.
trying. I thought it was her sister the whole time. It turns out to be her wife or girlfriend or something. And she is she's trying to find the cure for the resistant, and nobody else seems to want to give her the time of day. They did kind of jump that story in. That was, to me, that was the subplot that was not as well fleshed out as it could have been. The
Yep.
Abigail, Senan, Connor stuff I thought was all pretty good, and I was really, you know, along for the ride for that. But then every so often, Senan, you know, he's working as like an orderly for this woman who's trying to find the cure, the, you know, bare bones staffing that she's allowed to have, and they do like build that up a little bit with their relationship, but it's still, I kind of wish that there was more there.
Agreed, and they did some interesting stuff there with Senan and his interaction. You learn a lot because the infected, the resistant, don't react to the cured at all. So that's kind of a cool thing, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And that sets up a different dynamic too, because when they get out, they don't go after any of the cured. But yeah, I thought that part could have been done a little bit better.
Also, in terms of Senan, Abigail, Connor, and this, it's not really a love triangle. It's Connor tries to make it one, but he's just way too creepy, and God,
Yes.
he's handsy as hell. Like,
He's so handsy.
I would not be down with that. I'd be like, all right, you're touching me, and there's really no reason for you to be touching me right now. But when he basically is holding the knowledge that Senan killed his brother, aka Abby's husband, over Senan's head to keep him like in league with him. There's a variety of ways that Connor manipulates Senan throughout this film, which I also kind of enjoyed. The fact that it wasn't necessarily like hard to decipher, but it was just cool. I don't know. I enjoyed it.
I thought they played that out very well
Yeah.
because it wasn't just, he wasn't all in his face. He did very nasty little hints in a way that you would expect from this character.
Yeah.
And he played a creep extraordinarily well.
And the home invasion element too, I thought was
Yep.
really well done.
Yep. And then to have this little subplot where, you know, you're trying to figure out what's going on with the Curate, and then you see him kind of riling them up, and you see their weird behavior behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And that's the first time we really see that, which is super creepy. So I thought that there was a lot of good layering here in terms of the different stories.
Yeah.
And definitely when the build up to when Abby actually finds out that Senan killed her husband.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to. Yeah, like, what did you think of that scene? Did you think it would go that way?
I think that it was going to be a shock no matter what, but I think because she found out from Connor, she didn't really want to, like, the last thing you want to hear from Connor is something like that, and I think she was hoping that he was just so creepy that it wasn't real. So I actually thought that that was a pretty realistic reaction. And I don't know that there's ever a good time to tell anybody that kind of news.
Yeah.
But you know, I do think that he should have worked up the courage to do it before then. But I thought that that was, you know, but ultimately she trusts Senan, as we see later on. So
Well, yeah.
she trusts him with her kid. So it's like, you know,
But
I think
that's the first time they see each other after she's screaming at him, right? And it's just like, okay, in this scenario where I'm being thrown into the back of a truck by the UN, and you're the only person I can ask to do this.
yeah, but even then, I mean, you're going to send this guy after your kid. So
Yeah.
she must,
On some
I mean,
level,
look, that
she's
shock
still,
is
yeah,
there.
yeah.
If that shock's there, you can understand that. But I liked how they did that. And, you know, it sets Senan up for going to get Killian, which was kind of interesting too. And then for the sort of dramatic ending scene as well. So, I want to talk about a little bit about the filming and about what we were talking about. So, one of the things that they keep talking about is just how the population of the city is decimated. Things are getting back to normal. So, you know, it's not as populated a city as you would normally see. But they still, I think, did a great job with the number of extras and the number of people walking around, like, just enough.
Mm-hmm.
And you felt the military presence enough because they're all there.
But you also
they're,
felt like they were rookies and didn't know what the hell they were doing, right?
You did feel that too, but you could also imagine that might also be a scenario. So I actually thought that played out pretty well.
Yeah, I really thought that weirdly the background actors in a way like really carried certain scenes of this film in the right way.
And then you have some of the military folks acting, you know, very mixed. Some felt like, you know, they should be bullies, and some, you know, were actually helpful, though they ended up getting eaten most of the time. Like, I felt like they did a pretty good job at showing and even the guy that's like sort of the most annoying and evil, not evil, but the sort of bullying military guy has a reason for doing it because he's seen all this behavior.
Now he's
and he
a
shares
little
that
over
information.
the top, right? I mean, don't you
He's
feel like
totally over the top, but you can see, not that it's justified, but you can see how he gets there later when they fill in that story a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, he plays that kind of classic trope, but
yeah, the evil military comes back and raises its head once again, which is kind of depressing.
par for the course.
So, but yeah, Cantor is not only like Senan's parole officer, he also does like a home visit with Abigail. In a way, they have this one actor doing too many things, I think, but they have to like embody the quote unquote government in him. He's also way too old to be a sergeant, in my opinion. So he ends up being. He like comes to give Connor a shakedown at this like zombie community center one day, and he only comes with two other guys. And I'm like, you just walked into a building with probably like 50 ex-zombies in it. Like, don't come with two guys. And then later, Senan is going to meet Connor for some kind of confab the night of the big raid. And Senan has clearly dimed out Connor and called Cantor and invited him to this meeting. And Cantor comes by himself. He's like, I have a pistol and some zip ties. What can go wrong?
Yeah, yeah.
The poor guy, not as smart as he sounds. He sounds like a conspiracy nut when you first, hear his like weird things that he's saying to Abigail. But at the end, he was not nearly paranoid enough.
True. I thought that the cinematography was great as well. The lighting was wonderful. It felt pretty slick in terms of in terms of the overall package.
Yeah, the sets.
As
the
I said,
sets
just
were good.
sets were good.
Like the fact that they used that house a couple different ways,
so
a couple
well.
different times, like in the flashbacks and also in the present day, they were still living in the house where the bad things had happened. I thought was kind of interesting.
And then they use it for the penultimate scene with Killian, the little boy.
Yeah.
And that sets up the next sort of step, which,
Sequel.
yeah, I think so.
I mean, they definitely leave it open for a sequel, or they're just going to say, "This is how messed up it is," class system. What are we going to do with this second-class citizen situation of zombies?
Yeah.
Except in the case of, well, I don't. Yeah, I feel bad even talking about it, but yeah. So, little boys, children, and zombies. Like they have scenes of this kid running away in a parking garage from zombies, and it's terrifying. And I'm like, I hope that they filmed his scenes and the zombie scenes separately. This is a little kid.
I know. I was feeling so bad for him.
And I don't know how they handled
thing.
all of that. But then he actually has a zombie attack and gets bitten. Like, it's pretty hard. That part of it I thought was difficult to stomach, but the rest of it wasn't too bad. There weren't too many jump scares. It wasn't like a scary zombie movie, right? It was more like a thriller, I would say, until other than the scenes that involved Killian and horror.
Yeah, I think it's also with Killian getting bitten at the end. I mean, we see his mom take out a couple of infected right before she comes home, and so there's that, and then she's about to take out Killian, and that's the thing. She knows there's a cure, so that was kind of interesting that Senan had to talk her down, but he does, and then goes to join a zombie enclave.
He says there's a cure, but then he doesn't.
He's do it. Like, what's he doing? Walking around with Killian like a little weirdo.
Killian's still a zombie, like an uncured, and apparently who just sleeps all the time in a piggyback.
Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't totally sure what was going on with that, but of course, also like. But at the end of the film, there's a couple of newscasts that we overhear, and it seems like the stance is more hardline, but they're also talking about going to evacuate the zombies to save them. So I wasn't sure.
It was a little bit mixed. I mean, it's sort of, I think it was showing the sort of turning tide, because then they mention the cure that the doctor had found, Dr. Joan, then started talking about protecting the cured and things like that. So I felt like it was supposed to show that progression, but I think it made it a little confusing. So that's what I mean. Like a little bit of the storytelling, I think it could have been cleared up a little bit more clearly, but maybe they don't want to, because it is a tough thing. And if you're talking about politics and trying to draw parallels, I think you can see quite a few.
I mean, the one of the biggest parallels, or one of the biggest parallels to immigration, at least, which is the big argument in our country, is actually Connor is like the one to be sympathized with, where he was a lawyer, and then he became a zombie, and all of his murderous tendencies put aside for the moment, they then make him a cleaner or like a janitor. Right. So, then so the natural parallel is a doctor from another country coming to a new homeland and not being able to work in that field and becoming a taxi driver, for instance, which is something that we hear about all the time.
Yeah. How would you rank this 1 to 10?
This is a solid 7.5.
Yeah, I was gonna say between 7 and 8.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think Ellen Page played a badass. She wasn't 100%. She wasn't totally like developed. I would like to see a TV show based on this story with way more Ellen Page and way more Senan and way more Killian, and I feel like this story has a lot of legs, because honestly it did in the flesh, and maybe that's what I'm really saying is I want In the Flesh to come back, but
who doesn't?
Set in Ireland with Ellen Page.
Yeah,
it's asking a lot.
It is, but I agree. I wish they had not canceled that show, because this was a great premise. And again, I think that they did a great job at making it very close to home, having the memories being so vivid for the cured, but also having it be so immediate. So for in Sennon's case, killing his brother, Connor's case, killing his mother, which in the flesh they kind of they waffle around that a little bit. That's, I would say, go out and watch it, enjoy it. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, definitely get into this one because this is a lot of fun. And now we've got some more good stuff to look forward to. Zombieland 2. What was the one with Bob Murray?
Oh, it's like The Dead Don't Die or something like that.
The Dead Don't Die. And, Patient Zero coming out in just a couple of short weeks. So get psyched.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening to our review of the Cured, not The Cure with Robert Smith, The Cured. And hope that if you enjoyed it, send us an email at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com, or leave us a note on our website, reanimatedpodcast.com, or tweet at us. Our handle is reanimatedpcast. I hope other people enjoy this as much as we did, and I'd like to hear what they think. And next time we're going to kick off our review of Freakish, which is on Hulu, and we're going to take it 2 episodes at a time. So next time it will be episodes 1 and 2. Anything else to add, Mr. Tiffin?
No, haha, Conrad, you have covered it all.
Sweet. All right. Until next time, ciao.
Adios.